Okay, and welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I have with me Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you, man? Been a hot minute since we spoke.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, the gaming news over the past 2 weeks has been all over the place, so we have a lot to talk about. And everything has kind of hit the fan over the past few weeks, news wise. But we've got some light-hearted topics. We've actually got a ton of topics. Like, unfortunately, I can't fit everything in the title because we've got about 11 or 12 topics, some of which I haven't even got listed. But before we get into the topics, I want to talk about Elden Ring a bit because that game is incredible. Just wonder if you finished it yet.
Yeah, I did. I got one of the secret endings. I put about 189 hours in. It was phenomenal. Clear and front center my game of the year, unless something else comes up. I was leaving room for Starfield, but doesn't seem like that's going to be an issue now. so, but yeah, it was incredible and just mind blowing experience. Even if you're not a Souls fan and you just like RPGs or medieval setting or open world, you should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm near the end at the minute, and I'm deciding to do because there's only about 9 bosses in that game. You really have to fight, and there's about 120 optional bosses, and I've decided to do all of them. So before I go for the ending, so maybe not the best decision I've ever made, but it's fun. But I've said in the past, like I don't think people should play that game. That don't like Souls games, but my opinion is completely flipped. Like the fact that you can easily summon other players in, you've got those summon ashes which you can call in. There's wolves, there's the mimic tier, there's all kinds of soldiers and archers and stuff, and that game's going to be a lot of people's game of the year. There's still a lot of games to release, and as the months are going on, when I went into 2022, I was thinking, okay, Dying Light is going to win hands down for me, and I've just been putting more hours into Elden Ring. Dying Light 2 is fantastic, and I think everyone needs to play it, but Elden Ring is just phenomenal. And the thing is that occurred to me recently about that game is that its map and its open world, you play something like, Skyrim or The Witcher, both masterpieces of RPG design, but the maps are fairly flat. Whenever you see a mountain in those games, mountains are basically big hills. They don't take long to go up. But in Elden Ring, mountains are mountains. And even though I'm 110 hours in, I discovered a completely new region underneath a mountain the other day. And it's like there's 2 bosses in there, and there's like an optional quest line. And like I would never have discovered that unless I was just randomly exploring like I was. And I don't know, it's a phenomenal game. And again, if people aren't used to Soul style games, I highly recommend it. And now's the best time because there's the most amount of people playing, which means the most amount of people that's going to see those summon signs. And what a game. Again, it's probably my game of the year at the minute. That may change. We've still got things like Hogwarts Legacy and Gotham Knights, a lot of stuff still coming. And we've got, Xbox Summer Showcase around the corner, so a lot of stuff still coming. But anyway, let's get into the topics. So, I think I want to start off with the Square Enix rant because this is yeah,
Of course.
this is like episode 12 or something, but it's another Square Enix rant, and as an Xbox fan, I'm frustrated with them all the time. They don't port games over, and when they do, it's either something really old and they're very cherry picking the titles, whatever comes over. But Square Enix recently sold off Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics. And for the longest time, for years, I've wanted Square Enix to sell those off. Those deserve to be with a better publisher that would actually let them do what they want. And for the longest time, I thought, Microsoft will get them. If they would ever sell them off, it'll be Microsoft. But it's Embracer Group, and Embracer basically let their developers do whatever they want, which is awesome. But after they sold them and they start talking about that they're going into NFTs and all this stuff, and everyone on Earth that doesn't support NFTs was just rolling their eyes, and it's like you sold them studios plus the IP. Tomb Raider, one of the most recognizable video game characters of all time, you're selling that for NFTs and getting it into blockchain. Okay, fair enough. And then last week it comes out that they're looking for more Western developers to buy. It's like you had them right there, and it's just weird. Like Square Enix makes the strangest decisions of all time, and I just don't get it. Like you have your frustrations as well with Square Enix because again, people are still waiting for Final Fantasy 14 to come over to Xbox. That doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. Even though the game was rated in Brazil 4 years ago for Xbox. Final Fantasy 7 remake. That game was rumored to come to Xbox last year, but Microsoft apparently lost that due to Sony buying another year of exclusivity, and that happens with those titles, I guess. But I don't know, man. Like, what's your thought on Square Enix just selling them off and going into getting more Western studios?
I, not being involved in it, you don't know all the details and anything, but it almost just kind of feels like a personal kind of just like, wash our hands clean of this. We're going to sell them for pennies on the dollar. Just get them out of here. They just yeet them. And it's like, really? Like, I get maybe they weren't the most profitable, but you have to at least own part of the reason why. You horribly marketed them. People didn't even know what on earth some of these games were about, or their mechanics, or when they were coming out. Then you set absurd expectations, which they always fail, yet you are perfectly fine with all these Eastern studios and whatever they're doing. And then, like we haven't heard a peep about their massive disappointment. I would be massively disappointed in how Babylon's Fall's doing personally if I was Square Enix, but I haven't heard a peep about that. But anything to deal with Crystal Dynamics or Eidos Montreal or the other studio that was sold off, it just they always threw them under the bus, and it just felt like a divorce that needed to happen. It was a long time coming. I would have liked Microsoft to get them, and I think maybe had the AB deal not been in limbo right now, that they would have jumped on that. But, at the end of the day, if you have to choose AB or this, you choose AB because of the overall mass amounts of things and quality, everything. I love Tomb Raider, but you get all this or Tomb Raider, you choose the all this. And I'm happy they're free. I like Embracer. They are kind of the Frankenstein hodgepodge publisher. They just gather all these old IPs and flip them out and bring them back and see what hits and what doesn't. So looking forward to more Tomb Raider and Time Splitters and all the other stuff they're bringing back. But yeah, it boggles your mind that they just basically just take a huge loss on them, just get them out of there, and then have the audacity not only to say, "Oh, we did this so we can invest further in NFTs, which are at a like all-time low right now,
Yeah.
plummeting. The market is just horrid." And then on top of that, you're like, "Oh, we want to get some more studios." I mean, you mean like the ones you just got rid of that were actually really good? Like, come on now. It's just Square being Square. I mean, it's a broken record at this point. Honestly, for their sake, I hope Sony acquires them and manages them with an iron fist and straightens them out. I think they need a stern kind of tight leash to get them in focus.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, honestly, for the longest time, I've always thought, I don't want Square Enix to be picked up by like Sony, but like all the main franchises I care about are over at Embracer now. So it's like, you know, it's unfortunate I probably wouldn't get Final Fantasy or any more Kingdom Hearts games, but like it's Embracer I'm looking at. Like Embracer's came a long way. Like they've got Gearbox now, so they basically have the Borderlands franchise from now on. Like it's crazy, and I think when it comes to single player content, like that's what a lot of people look forward to now because we don't seem to get a lot of high quality single player content from a lot of third party developers. But like if you look at Embracer and Focus Home Interactive, they going all in on single player games. You know, I think Focus Home Interactive, they have a co-op game and one multiplayer game they barely talk about. The rest is just pure single player. Um, but the good thing about the whole Embracer thing is that we definitely going to see remasters of older games. Like they've done that with, Darksiders and all the other franchises they have, and we're still going to get things like, there's the rumored Time Splitters collection, which has been rumored for the past year. There's a rumor that we're going to see, during the THQ Nordic event, we may see the new Red Faction game, Red Faction Evolution. That's been heavily rumored for the past year and a half. So Embrace is going to be interesting to look at. And plus, I think we may actually see full next-gen upgrades for those titles, such as like Deus Ex and, the Tomb Raider trilogy, because I think people would really love next-gen updates for Tomb Raider and, Shadow of the Tomb Raider and stuff. Excellent games, but yeah, weird time. But hey, Embracer, I think they're the better publisher right now anyway. Anyway, before I move on, people, if you're listening right now or during the video on demand, please like and share. It really helps the channel out. Got a lot of cool stuff planned coming over the next few weeks. Anyway, let's continue. So limited run games, they've been around for a while. They come out with these little, releases. Basically limited run, it's in the title, and it's always these indie games or these games that's double A that never got a physical release. And for the longest time, we've never seen Xbox copies. And it's been rumored for a long time that we couldn't get them because Microsoft basically has a allocated amount that could be printed for physical discs. Well, clearly they've sorted that situation now, because for the longest time, Limited Run Games has said, look, we're working with Microsoft to sort it all out. We'll talk about it in the future. And today, they just announced it. And it's going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. It's going to be the first limited run title on Xbox. And I know you were excited about this because we've never seen limited run games. So what's your thought on this whole thing?
I'm very happy. I've been in the camp of kind of just banging on their door for years, trying to get limited run to acknowledge Xbox's existence. But thankfully, it seems like tides are turning. We're getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first, which looks awesome to me. Looks really fun. I love those old retro turtle games. And I'm personally hoping that the next few titles from them are like, Double Fine's Psychonauts, or, Quake Remastered, or, the Doom Collection. Some of these that are Xbox IPs that for some record scratch reason weren't given a physical copy for Xbox. So hopefully they address those first, and then going forward, like everything they can do will be on Xbox as well. So I know it's a smaller deal because there's not as many physical collectors on the Xbox platform, but for those of us who do, it's a big deal, and we're very happy.
Yeah, it's a big move for like the group of people that really care. Like when this whole thing was announced, all I thought was like we could possibly see, a physical edition of Psychonauts 2. And I would love to see that because Psychonauts 2, phenomenal game. It's available on, Xbox Game Pass and all that stuff. But like, I would just love a physical copy of that. And that's a possibility now. Like you were saying, Quake. It would be cool to own Quake on disc in 2022 for Xbox. But yeah, if people support it, we'll probably see more. Again, Limited Run Games did come out today and say we will see more. So we're probably going to see some announcements over the summer showcase week, because that's when Jeff Keighley's having, the Summer Games Fest thing, which whatever that is. Well, we could talk about that another day, but it's cool time. It's cool time. I want to talk about a game that was announced at, I think it was a Summer Games Fest, or it was either the Game Awards about a year ago, and you'll have heard of this. That's the Callisto Protocol. And this is by Glenn Schofield, one of the creators of Dead Space. And I love Dead Space. I'm sure a lot of people listening love Dead Space. And basically, about a year and a half ago, it was announced that the Callisto Protocol is going to be a spiritual successor to Dead Space. We've got a cool CGI trailer, and we've had nothing since. And recently, they announced that they're going to partner with Game Informer to talk about all this stuff. Now, I'm in the UK, so I haven't really tried this out yet. But in the US, there's a free issue you can download right now or view online, and it's basically going over a bunch of screenshots and what the game's about. And this game sounds so cool. Like, apparently you're on your own spaceship, you crash on the moon of Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons, and they end up in a prison. Right? Sounds very Dead Spacious. I like it already. And apparently, everything goes wrong, and you have to escape. Now, it looks a lot like Dead Space, but imagine what you'd think what a next gen Dead Space would look like. Minimal HUD. Basically, the HUD is part of the suit, much like the health pack and stuff on the stasis thing. Just when Logan, have you seen the Game Informer stuff today?
I haven't seen all the new stuff. I saw it when they first revealed that they were doing a Game Informer thing, but I haven't looked into it today. No.
Okay, so basically, next gen looking Dead Space. Apparently, the telekinesis stuff is going to be in this game. Uh, you know, Hacky Sack just said in chat, Dead Space 3 was my favorite in the series. Do you know what? Before I continue, I want to say Dead Space 3 was fun. My only problem with it wasn't the microtransaction stuff or the weird co op element. It was the fact that it had weird save points. In Dead Space 1 and 2, there would be these dedicated save points throughout each level. But in Dead Space 3, like, I would die and I'd go back to the beginning of the level. Like, I don't know if it was just some weird glitch because it was an Xbox 360 game at the time, but like fun action, great graphics on the Xbox 360, incredible zero G scenes, but like that game had some weird save points. Like I did not like it, but cool game. But yeah, the Callisto Protocol. It stars Josh Duhamel. He was in the Transformers movies. Cool actor. I've seen him on other stuff, but he's the lead actor. Couldn't make out who he was in some photos because he has a helmet on. But yeah, if people like Dead Space and you want a gory horror sci-fi game, you're going to want to pay attention to the Callisto Protocol. The pictures will make itself on Twitter and stuff very soon because again, it's a free issue, and it looks like we're going to see gameplay live during Xbox. Or I should say the. I was going to say Phil Spencer, Jeff Keighley Summer Showcase stuff. I always forget the name of it, but it looks cool. I think people should really pay attention to it. And this also wasn't another topic, but Battlefield 2042 came out November or whatever after a very very bad alpha. It came out with a trailer that people loved. I was hyped about Battlefield, and it turns out that it didn't live up to the hype. It was pretty bad. It was buggy, and even the graphics weren't as good as Battlefield 4, which was strange. And the battle pass situation and the whole season thing, they came out in like February saying that season one was going to start in the summer, and it made a lot of Battlefield fans angry because they were selling copies for over $100. Like K Mega even bought a copy for over $100. Like I would feel really ripped off, and you'd expect with like season one content, 1 year of content with a game, you'd expect content every now and then. And we'll talk about the Halo stuff later, but like Battlefield's in a bad way. So they came out today and said, look, in June or July, they're coming out, and that's when the season one starts. And there's no new maps. It's basically a new gun, new outfit, or whatever. And they're gonna revamp some maps because a lot of the maps are barren, pretty bad. And yeah, it's not the best looking thing because the developers basically said, look, the main mode that they promoted the game with is not going to get any more content, and they kind of loosely just said that they're moving on to the next game. Like a lot of the high ups at EA have been talking about future Battlefield games for months now. They've kind of abandoned it. So, I kind of feel bad for people because like there's a lot of people that spent over $100 thinking you're gonna get a year of content, maps, skins, new weapons, vehicles, whatever. And yeah, so if you're listening and you bought Battlefield for over $100, I feel sorry. Try and get a refund or something. Like, what do you think of this whole situation? It's pretty scummy that people have had to wait a year and they get nothing, pretty much.
Yeah, it's a sick joke at this point. As someone who bought Anthem Legion of Dawn Edition, I sympathize.
Oof.
It, where, yeah, I know. Where you buy a game, you're hyped for it, you think it's gonna be awesome. You're like, dude, I love the publisher, the studio, I trust their work. This is gonna be awesome new experience, and then it ends up, falling flat on its face, and then management abandons it and they just move on to something new. That sucks. It shouldn't happen, especially when people are paying triple digits in price for stuff and they were promised a year of content. I mean, I don't know. There's something about that don't seem right, but at the end of the day, I guess instead of just trying to prop up some corpse of a game, they would rather just move on and try again with a different Battlefield, which hopefully they get right this time.
Yeah, it's a strange situation. It's like, I think everyone that's listening, you've mentioned, like, we've all bought games that we've been hyped for and they've came out and they've been disappointing. Like Legion of Dawn edition of Anthem. Like, I was close to getting that, but I just went against it at the last minute. But I still bought the regular edition, and like that game was so abandoned that the developers forgot to turn off the Christmas lights, so they were still up for 3 months after Christmas. So if you're playing Anthem and going around in the hub, there was still Christmas decorations up in March. Like, that's how abandoned that game was. And unfortunately, it happens a lot. This is one of the reasons why I stay away from multiplayer centric or shared world experiences. Like, one, I don't like the fact that I'm locked into playing a game when other people have to at a certain time, and two, like, games are at risk of getting abandoned. Like, and Anthem, that game was abandoned quick. Battlefield, that game's pretty much abandoned. And the thing is, there is not really another experience like Battlefield other than Battlefield. So you either have to play an older one, and Battlefield's kind of like Star Wars or Star Trek movies where like people like the last one that came out like over the new one, and it just happens every single time. But yeah, it's weird. I feel sorry for them because, like, again, like, a lot of people have gotten that for Christmas as well, and just $100 for that. And I hate seeing Battlefield dead. I love Battlefield. I still like Call of Duty, but Battlefield 3 is the game that pulled me away from COD. Like, I remember Modern Warfare 3 came out, and I was highly, highly disappointed. More disappointed than a kid on Christmas getting coal. Like, like, I was so disappointed. But then I played this game, Battlefield 3, and it was a fresh new experience because my mate was keep telling me for weeks and months, you have to play this game. And I played the beta for Operation Metro, and it blew my mind. I was like, how do I have these graphics on an Xbox 360 in 2011? It was mind blowing. And Hacky Sack and Chat just said armor. I didn't actually have this as a topic, but I can link it in. So if people like super simmy combat, Armor, this basically combat sim, FPS, it's been out for years on PC. I never thought we'd actually see a console version. Well, Armor Reforger launched on Xbox last week in the preview program. I played it. If you like Battlefield with the very sim stuff, you will like it. Like, this is the most simmy Battlefield you could probably get. It's super realistic. There's no aim assist. There's no crosshairs other than the one that's actually on the scope. It's very realistic. The graphics are really good. It's very small install. I think it was only about 9 gigabytes, even though the island is like 50 square kilometers. It's ridiculous. But yeah, if you're into Battlefield, I highly recommend downloading it. It's got a 6-hour trial on Xbox right now. Play it. Again, it's not for me. It was just too simmy. I just couldn't get into it. And when I finally got into a match after the tutorial, I got shot down straight away because I thought it would be cool to run across a field towards the gunfire. Clearly, someone else was better at the game than me, and I got gunned down several times in a row. And yeah, again, if you like sim stuff, go for it. Even the driving's very simmy. You can tip over a Jeep just by turning at a high speed. It's super cool. But yeah, download it, play it. Battlefield fans, again, you get 6 hours, 6 hours for free, and if you decide you like it, just pay for it. And it's fairly cheap too. I think it was only about £25, so it's going to be like $35 ish, I think. So yeah, highly recommend it. Battlefield, that's another franchise we'll probably be disappointed again in the future. Anyway, we'll move on. So some news came out this past week about Metal Gear Solid 4. Now, I've been a fan of Metal Gear Solid since I was a little kid, and I played Metal Gear Solid on my little PlayStation 1, and I loved it. Had no idea what was going on at the time because I was too young, but I loved it. In every subsequent release, I got it, and I loved it. Anyway, Metal Gear Solid 4 launched on the PlayStation 3 back in, I think it was 2008, I'm not entirely sure. And it's incredible, right? It was an exclusive for the PlayStation 3. It basically took advantage of the Blu-ray drive and the horsepower of the GPU on the PS3. and I loved it. You know, the controversy around that game was it basically had 9 hours of cutscenes. Like you watch that game more than you play it. I'm not even kidding. The ending cutscene is about 2.5 hours long. Like when I played it the last time, I was able to sit back and drink a few pints of cider, like just casually watching it like a movie because it was basically a movie. But yeah, so anyway, that game never made it to other platforms. The PlayStation 3 was has basically been a dead platform for almost a decade now. You know, Metal Gear Solid 4. I don't care who makes fun of the long cutscenes. I absolutely adore that game. I loved it. Well, it turns out there was no exclusivity deal in place. So after all these years of people talking about remasters or possible remasters of these games, and every time I mentioned it, I always got a few trolls in chat or on Twitter replying saying you can't, it's an exclusive. Well, it turns out we could see a remaster in the future because there was never a deal. You know, Kojima has always been very linked with Sony. So whenever you see product placement in any of his games, it's always a Sony Walkman or a Sony camera or Sony television. It's always Sony stuff. You know, he likes Sony. For a lot of good reasons. You know, worked back in the original PlayStation days, so all that stuff worked out well for him. But with Konami rumored to be working on remasters of other games, because if you remember, the Metal Gear Solid HD collection got pulled from every single platform: 3DS, PS Vita, PS3, Xbox 360, and that was in November. And they said that they were going to get everything sorted. And it hasn't been listed since. Konami hasn't even talked about it or even acknowledged the situation. And then with this info coming out, it leads me to believe that they are working on a full, 1 to 4 remaster. This is just speculation of the Metal Gear Solid collection, whole thing, because there's no other reason not to now. You know, the Xbox One and Xbox Series X has a Blu-ray drive now, so that's not a problem. They could actually get that thing to run on a Switch now. You know, like think about it, the Nintendo Switch is more powerful than a PS3. That's mind blowing to kind of think about. But what's your whole thought on the whole Metal Gear Solid 4 thing?
I'd be thrilled if they port it to Xbox because it was one I always wanted to play, but never got around to it during that gen. So if they remastered it or made a collection, I would definitely pick it up. And yeah, like you said, with them pulling some things and them still not being up, and then this wasn't even a topic, but leaks that got DMCA'd about Silent Hill and some of that other stuff about Konami projects in the pipeline. I totally wouldn't be shocked if they finally decided to go back to their catalog and throw out a few remasters or ports or collections just to get some quick money for till they decide what next they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, the Konami thing. So here's the thing I'm weird about talking about Konami because every week I see in the news, not Street Fighter, Silent Hill news, Silent Hill leaks. Like, if anyone's been on Twitter for at least a month, they've seen some sort of Silent Hill related thing, and it's always forced rumors. I never believe any of it, but this looked fairly real. Some screenshots which I can't post because again, people that were posting them were getting DMCA'd right, left, and center. And yeah, I mean that's probably real. The thing is, a lot of people say Sony or Microsoft need to buy Konami. Konami makes most of their money from gym equipment and vitamin water. Or vitamin water. Sorry, English people, I said it like the Americans, but vitamin water. So I don't know if that would make sense. But yeah, the Metal Gear Solid thing. I think it could happen now. Because there's no other reason not to. And, I've said in the past, I've defended that game. Metal Gear Solid 4, excellent game. Yes, you're watching it most of the time, but that's kind of part of the experience. If you think back to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, you're getting calls over the codec every, few minutes, and you're spending more time listening than playing the game, so it's pretty much you just watching something this time. And there's cutscenes as long as movies, but I don't know. It's kind of good. And the thing is, if you look at Konami, they have tons of cool IP. Castlevania, that's been a dead franchise for a decade now. Like the last new game that came out was Lords of Shadow 2, which was disappointing to a lot of people. But Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Although I do think we will see a collection now. Because the second I saw that news and that there was no exclusivity deal in place, I was like, that's possible now. There's no reason not to. Hardware is not an issue. And whenever I bring up Metal Gear Solid 4 coming to Xbox, I always get this certain reply that they would have to, you know, do a lot of work with the remaster. It's like we've had remasters where they've done a lot of work, like, Mass Effect Legendary Edition that got completely reworked. Mass Effect One is basically a remake visually. They redid all the assets. 30,000 plus assets got touched up. Then you have Saints Row the third remastered where they redid the gun models, the character models, and all the vehicle models, and it really looks good now. So like whenever remasters get brought up, people mention it would require effort. It's like, well, of course, I expect that from a game. I want a game to require effort because if that doesn't require effort, do you know what we get? The GTA trilogy, which to this day is still buggy beyond belief. Uh, but it's going to be interesting to see if they actually have a summer showcase or games, during Jeff Keighley's thing or whatever. But it's an exciting time because, again, Metal Gear Solid fans on Xbox have probably wanted to play 4, like yourself, for a long time. Excellent game, and it's a possibility now, which is awesome. And with that, I think we're going to go right into the Halo stuff because we've got about an hour left or so, and hell, it's going to go on as long as it needs to. But so I'm going to let you take the mic because I don't play Halo multiplayer. I've taken a step back from multiplayer for pretty much all games for years, ever since Titanfall back in 2014. I haven't really thoroughly enjoyed multiplayer. Like, I think Halo Infinite is super fun. I love the graphics, I love the gameplay and all that stuff, but it doesn't really hook me. No multiplayer hooks me. I tried to get into Modern Warfare 1 in 2019. Loved it. I played about 20 hours online, and that was it. Black Ops Cold War. Loved it. Put about the same amount of time in it, but like nothing is hooking me. I don't want to play multiplayer. I'm more of a single player guy. But yeah, you know more about this, so you can go.
Yeah, well, this will be a short one. Just that basically they had been given a lot of flack when they announced that they were taking some things out in season two that people were expecting, like the tank gun glitch. Like in the campaign, you could find this invisible, basically, scorpion tank gun and then carry it with you through the campaign. And a lot of people were using it to get the lasso achievement, the legendary all skulls on, and like we're doing it for speed runs or whatever, and it was just something fun. It wasn't a game breaking thing, it was just a fun gag that they had in there. Well, for some reason they decided to remove that, and then there was some traversal jumps and things in some of the multiplayer maps where people that were really really good at the game and had memorized the maps down to like a pixel realized like, oh, I can jump on this square and then hop to this board, and then I could slide across the map quicker and do this and that. And they had basically removed those on several maps. And so people were understandably pretty irritated about it because they're like, it didn't feel like a competitive advantage to us. It was just, it was there. So why are you taking it away? It was just traversal. And so they heard everybody and they brought it back. They're bringing it back. So that was good news for Halo. On the other hand, I have some friends today tell me that they are having issue with the new event where basically it's like the fractured one where it won't let you just grind it all out in one week. You're gonna have to get up to a certain point and then wait till it comes back again to get more, and then wait till it comes back again to get more, instead of just letting you get it at your own pace, which is just, it's not a huge deal, but it's just a minor irritant when they kind of manually restrict you from just getting what you want.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be annoying. When it comes to the whole tank gun glitch, I only found out about that when they announced that they were going to remove it. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. But yeah, I mean, I could imagine stuff like that would really anger the speedrunning community because I've seen games in the past like that speedrunners have been really into, and when they change something or slightly update it, it angers them beyond belief because if you change like certain like grab vector on a ledge, it's going to completely change the game. If they changed Elden Ring in the slightest, I think Twitter would implode. By the speedrun community. But yeah, it's good that they paying attention to that stuff, and I think Microsoft just needs to get better at the whole unironically live service stuff, because people have been claiming them for years for just doing live service stuff, but when it comes to Halo Infinite, they still haven't got it right. It's still a learning experience. Um, what's weird? Like if you look back at Halo 5, and I liked Halo 5. I really enjoyed it. You know, the game was pretty much you buy these rec packs and you have a chance of earning certain cosmetics or things to use in the Warzone mode, or a Warzone firefight. To me that seemed fair at the time. I don't know if it's because I rarely play these games, the live service titles, with multiplayer and stuff anymore. But I don't know, that just seemed fine. We've talked about on this show many times, and I think I was like the first person on earth to realize like map packs for Halo, Call of Duty, and Battlefield seemed more consistent in quality when we were paying for them up front. That angers some people when I mention that, because that's insinuating like, oh, I think you should pay more. It's like, no, we were getting map packs for all those games every 3 months. you know, uh, like remember the trailers we'd get for Call of Duty map packs? Like every few months it would be like, this is like the Devastation map pack or Kill House or something. And
It was a mini event.
yeah, and it was like a big event. Oh, we're getting these new maps, and it was always like 3 or 4 maps. Battlefield, I think that was 3 maps each time. But yeah, it's a shame about the live service stuff. Again, Microsoft, they say they're listening. They need to get better at it. But it makes you wonder if Halo were to launch with the Xbox Series X and S when it was originally meant to. What was multiplayer going to consist of? Like a map.
It would have been woof.
But I think that's a bullet they dodged, kind of. I just I understand why you'd be annoyed by like having to like keep going back to earn stuff and like not being able to do everything at once. That stuff's understandable, but like every day I open up Twitter and I see like a Halo fan or a Halo YouTuber that are just angry all the time about everything. Like I remember in April 1st, Among Us announced that Xbox players were going to get Master Chief outfits, to use during games. And people like me that play Among Us, I was like, this is cool. I can walk around as Master Chief. And at the time, you could play as a horse, so you could play as Horse Master Chief, which was amazing. It was so funny. But like when that happened, people were replying like, "Oh, we get cosmetics in Halo for this." Like it's like. Like, and then there's the cookbook where people got angry, and then there's the TV show where people got angry, and Shizno Elite just said in chat, no matter what 343 do, it won't ever be good enough. And, even if they fix all this stuff, people will still complain. 343's been blamed for the Halo TV show. I haven't seen it yet because it hasn't aired yet over here, but honestly, from the clips I've seen, I think it looks cool. I like the look of like I love sci-fi. I talk about science fiction all the time. It looks cool to me, But Halo fans are clearly angry. I've seen the memes. I clearly know what happens in some episodes, and people. And when I say people, I mean Halo fans. Halo fans don't like the idea that Master Chief had sex. Like that's a world we live in, and I didn't know that the law behind it because I just play the games. I've read a few books, but it's like he shagged someone. Who cares? Like, get over it. Move on. But yeah, Halo fans, chill. Just chill. Don't be angry all the time. They'll fix it eventually. All the multiplayer stuff. Is that all you want to say on Halo? Because again, I haven't touched the multiplayer in months.
Oh, basically, yeah. And that I enjoyed the show. There were a few things that I was kind of like scratching about, but in general, I think it's an interesting take, and I think season two is gonna hit the ground running. Like I think they had to spend season one setting the stage to really set this apart, but can't get into spoilers obviously, but I think the way their season two has been set up, it's gonna be a lot more focused on what people want. I believe personally.
Yeah, well, when season 2 comes out, I'll look forward to watching it in 2025 because UK air dates for American shows are just terrible. We wait for months. Like, get it together, Paramount Plus. We waiting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. Shizno just said the Halo community does all it can to ruin the franchise. There's a lot of franchises beyond, just video games that are just angry all the time. Star Wars fans,
Star Wars.
yeah, yeah, Star Wars fans are angry all the time. The Star Trek community, oh my, like the Star Trek community online have been angry constantly since the release of Star Trek Enterprise in, I think that was 2002, 2003. Like, funny thing about Star Trek Enterprise, I'm going off on a tangent. When Star Trek Voyager finished airing, the final episode of season 7, it was promised, and it was kind of loosely promised that we would see the new starship of the next series, in the final frame of Star Trek Voyager. So I remember watching it, and it was a cool looking ship. For Star Trek fans listening, we all know the Enterprise NX-01 is basically based on a upside down Akira class vessel. Yes, I'm a Star Trek nerd. Get on with it. But yeah, basically it looks cool, and there was a lot of Star Trek fans online whining about it because it doesn't look like a traditional Enterprise, and it's like them same people complained when it got cancelled. And Star Trek fans have been angry since. When J.J. Abrams took over the franchise with Star Trek 2009. I loved that film, by the way. People were angry. They were complaining about the bloom and all that stuff, and then they complained about Star Trek Discovery. They complained about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and they're gonna complain forever. And it's the same with Halo. There's Halo fans out there that are completely solid, been fans of the franchise since day one, and they love it, and they're gonna buy future games, future books, and all that stuff. But like, there's a chunk of all these fan bases that are just extremely toxic, and they just can't shut up, and they want everything back to be how it originally was, when it never will be ever again. And it's just gonna happen. We just have to ignore them, block them. I have almost 2,000 people blocked on Twitter. You'd be surprised how many of them are Halo people. I'm just putting it out there.
It doesn't surprise me, honestly.
Like we're gonna talk. We have to talk about the PlayStation Plus Now Super Edition XL, Extreme stuff in a minute. But most of the people I have blocked are extremist PlayStation fans, right? I think people listening and people that follow me can understand that. But there's a chunk of Halo fans that just won't shut up. Just saying. If I interact with a Halo fan, I'm not muting you or blocking you. Anyway, we'll move on. Screw it. Let's just jump straight into the PlayStation stuff because this is an Xbox podcast. This isn't a doggone PlayStation podcast. But backwards compatibility is extremely important to me. It's important to Logan as well. We talk about backwards compatibility all the time. Microsoft. When the Xbox One came out in 2013, we didn't have backwards compatibility. If you were to go on the digital store on either platform, there was about 20 games. It was strange. I still have an Xbox 360 plugged into this day, but at the time, I was using my Xbox 360 as much as my Xbox One because, it had GTA on it. It was the only way to play it. And, over time, we got the backwards compatibility announcement in 2015. And, at the time, we could play multiplayer with people on 360. We could take screenshots and, record clips. And then when the Xbox One X came out, we got the ability to play games in 4K, which was amazing. Things like Final Fantasy 13 and Splinter Cell Blacklist look phenomenal. And then, over time, we got the Xbox Series X and S with auto HDR and then frames per second boosts. And now we have things like, Mad Max, which is a super underrated game. But if you have an Xbox Series X or S and you have the capable display, you can play it at 120 frames per second. That's kind of ridiculous, Anyway, so where am I going with this? The ability to play games is important. There's games that are lost to time. We will never be able to play things like, Wolverine, the video game, which was actually better than the movie because that's, kind of lost to time. I think it was Sega, they lost the rights to, publishing that game, so I can never see another release. And, the list goes on. The Transformers War for Cybertron games, we can't see them again because Activision no longer has the Transformers license. And, well, basically, BC is important. So anyway, PlayStation announced with the merging of the services of PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus to create PlayStation Plus Essential. By the way, worst naming convention ever. They should have just called like Play Pass or something, PlayStation Pass. Anyway, they announced that if you have the second tier, you're going to be able to play your PlayStation 1 games. There's no PlayStation 2 games listed, but they said in the future there will be there. And you're going to be able to play those locally on your consoles. And then if you have the third tier, you're going to be able to stream PlayStation 3 games on your PlayStation 4 or 5. Which, I mean, that's a topic for another day, or we could talk about it today. But anyway, it comes out today that, and if you have a PlayStation and you're intending to get this service for some retro games, basically it came out today that some of the PlayStation 1 games are 50 hertz PAL editions. Now, for people that don't know and live in the US, because most of my audience is actually from the US and Canada, TVs in Europe, Australia, Japan, and pretty much the UK in the 90s up until like 2000 and I want to say 2003, televisions were 50 hertz. So if a game was programmed for 60 hertz or like 30, the frames and the hertz didn't match up. So basically, it felt like. Have you ever played a video game, Logan, where the frame rate, you can tell the GPU is trying its best to render what's going on the screen, and it kind of slows down for a few frames. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Stuttering.
yeah,
Sure.
stuttering. So if stuttering, it feels like slow motion, sluggish. Well, anyway, if you play a PAL version that's like that, it's the whole experience from start to finish. It's not like a CPU thing or a GPU thing. It's just those 50 hertz games or versions, and yeah, it's terrible. Remember when the PlayStation 1 Classic came out a few years ago? I think it had like 25 games on or something. Well, a lot of those games were the PAL editions. The PAL versions, which were 50 hertz. And trust me, if you live in the US, you don't want to play a 50 hertz game because you're getting 25 hertz basically when you're playing a 30 frames game, and it's awful. It's just a terrible experience. It looks like the PlayStation 1 games are going to be like that. So, Logan, what's your thought on that? Because again, you've probably never played a PAL version of a game, and if you have, I feel sorry for you because they were terrible.
Thankfully, I have not been subjected to a PAL version of a game, but looking at the screen grabs and the little trailers I've seen of those is enough. It's a horror show. It's not what I would subject someone to for sure. And just, uh, I guess, just dive into the whole service. Like, the fact that it took them ages to finally embrace BC, and after mocking, nobody wants to play old games, or we believe in generations, and then how it's all just a bunch of BS and just PR spin by Jim in his little office somewhere about what he knows the community wants to hear. Because their community has a very, very certain view on things. And it's so funny is like as soon as it comes to them though that they get something else, it's great. But if someone else already had it or someone else gets it, then it's suddenly not good anymore. It's that's another tangent. But jumping in, yeah, the fact that they're giving them such shoddy versions of it and a limited number at that, and then it's hidden behind a digital subscription, and the fact that you can't stack your subscriptions and you can't your cards and everything, or they will retroactively upcharge you for to the premium instead of just you pay PS Plus and you get grandfathered in like Xbox does with their Xbox Ultimate. Like I can buy years of those cards when they're on sale around Christmas, and I can stack several years in a row, and like I'm solid. I've got Game Pass Ultimate, Gold, everything, great, and they don't frown upon it. They accept it, and they're like, cool, as long as you're in, you're in. PlayStation has this little no loophole policy basically, and they will get their money whether you like it or not. And it's just I don't know. The whole thing really, really rubs me wrong.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, they basically had to look at the Xbox playbook, they like the thing about the PlayStation 4 generation was actually a lot like the Xbox 360 generation. They concentrated on a lot on partner titles like Call of Duty and stuff, and it worked out for them. So when it came to this whole live service stuff, I should say game subscription stuff, they literally just had to copy Game Pass. That's literally it. But after this whole thing that's been happening today that we've seen, and there's been more news about it, like I don't think Sony's ecosystem is, it's not as up to snuff as it, Microsoft. Like all our saves work across multiple platforms. You can play a game on Xbox and then play it streamed, on a PC and all this stuff, and all this stuff works seamlessly without the player thinking about it. But on PlayStation, you have to like sync trophies and you have to worry about what saves works where and stuff. And it's just strange. Like you would have thought by now, Sony would have been able to figure this out. But when it comes to BC stuff, like people wanted this stuff for years. Whenever I talk about backwards compatibility, and you've seen this as well, I get the old games reply. Like, oh, you're playing this because there's nothing new to play. It's like, I play games. I don't care when it came out. Like, it could have came out 20 years ago or yesterday. If it's good, it's good. I don't care. And, I think it's important for people to be able to replay these, games. Like, I want my future kids to be able to play, let's say, Mass Effect, right? I'm going to force them to play Mass Effect, basically. Not literally, but you know what I mean. But like, I want them to play Mass Effect, and like that will probably be via backwards compatibility with the Legendary Edition and stuff. And it's important that we all have access to that on all platforms. Like, I think people should be allowed to be able to buy their or play their digital purchases on Switch that they bought on 3DS. Like, there's people I've spoken to that have bought Mario 3 5 times. Like, that should not be a thing. And, PlayStation's ecosystem just isn't where it needs to be. And, I look at the PAL thing, the fact that you can't stack stuff, and it just came out today that someone decided to stack, or at least think that they could, stack 15 years of PlayStation Now. So, meaning that, that person thinking, oh, well, I'm going to have access to PlayStation, Essential for, 15 years. Sounds cool, right? Well, it turns out he's going to get upcharged for the transition to PS Plus Essential. It's mad. It's crazy. Like, they just had to copy Game Pass. And, even though this is an Xbox podcast and this isn't a dog on PlayStation show or channel, it's like, it's important to talk about this stuff, because if, let's say, PlayStation came out with an excellent service like Game Pass, and we're going to talk about Game Pass in a bit out of some of the stuff over the past few days, but like, if they came out with a service like Game Pass that offered a compelling, library in the same way, that would push Microsoft to be even better, which would push PlayStation to be even better. And, they would keep spending millions to get these games on the services. But at the end of the day, gamers win. We win. So when I see them come out with a service that doesn't offer much, it's like, you have to be vocal about it. Like, here's the thing, I will talk about Halo fans being annoying sometimes, but I will say this. Halo fans have been extremely vocal from the start, because they are not shy to voice their opinion. People are always vocal about their opinions of Xbox and where they need to improve, and look where they are now. They own all these studios, they own all these, all these games are in development now, and it looks like Microsoft will actually get to a point where they do release a new exclusive every quarter or so. And, we'll talk about the exclusives in a bit, but like, they just need to get better at it. And it's like, when I saw the 50 hertz thing, like, if you don't live in a PAL region from that time, like, that's a horrible experience. Like, it's a slow, but not like, I remember playing, I think it was Tekken 2, or it might have been Tekken 3, I can't remember, but it was a Tekken game. In a Tekken game, you want fast movement. Well, it was a 60 frames game and a 50 hertz display. Well, it wasn't capable of doing it, so it was like playing a fighting game in slow motion with motion blur. It was terrible, awful experience. Shiznoli just said in chat, after Nintendo ditched the Virtual Console and ditched Nintendo, or after he ditched Nintendo, there's no real reason for him to buy it. Here's the thing, Nintendo keep upcharging people for the same games they own. They shouldn't. Again, when it comes to this stuff, gamers just need to be vocal. Xbox fans are being vocal about stuff. It's happening. PlayStation fans, I know you were going to say this before, but PlayStation fans aren't very vocal about things they want changing, and they aren't very vocal about negative things about PlayStation.
It's been crickets today.
Yeah, like nobody's talking about it. Like 50 hertz games, I promise you, nobody wants to play them. And if you're a PlayStation fan, listen to this. Be vocal. 50 hertz game, and the thing is, the NTSC, the basically the US versions of these games, they exist. It's not like Sony can't afford to get them or get the rights. It's literally a different type of file. That's literally it. It's nothing needs to be hard coded or anything. It's literally they just need to get a slightly different file or alter the one they already have because the settings available. Hell, if you have a PlayStation 1 Classic and you plug in a USB keyboard, you get the options to change it. Sony has the tools like in their hands to change these settings. And people have been saying, oh, it's okay, it's just the beginning of the service. It's a merging of PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, services that have been around for years. They should have known this stuff by now. Like, it's a weird situation that they're just not listening. And the thing is, like I was saying before, like Sony fans have to be vocal. Sony's not poor. They people might joke about them not having as much money as Microsoft, and they don't. But they have billions. They can afford to software this stuff into systems. They can afford to do backwards compatibility for PlayStation 3. Be vocal about it, because guess what? The reason I keep talking about Metal Gear Solid 4 all the time and it coming to Xbox, or me wanting it to come to Xbox, is because there's no way to play it outside of my PlayStation 3, which is louder than the helicarrier from the Avengers movies, right? You know, it's just a terrible situation. It's like people need to be vocal about this stuff, and as you were saying before, like not being able to stack, your subscriptions is weird because Microsoft, like, it's easy to stack stuff with Microsoft. You just keep adding months or whatever, and and with the whole Xbox ecosystem thing, you've got Microsoft Rewards. I have not paid for Game Pass in such a long time. I just use Microsoft Rewards. If you do the rewards every month, you can buy Game Pass Ultimate every single month. If you're in a region, of course, with Game Pass, or I should say Microsoft Rewards. But it's very strange. It's very strange that they came out and basically said this service is going to have all these issues, and like I'm just saying on Twitter, no one's vocal. Like, I don't know, man. Like what's your thought on like them not talking about it? Because again, that's how we get better stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic that Xbox fans, I mean, maybe we can be a bit obnoxious sometimes, but at least we get our points across and we're vocal and we expect better or we expect something from Xbox. It's a two-way street. With Sony community, it feels like at least that there's a lot of they just accept what happens. That Sony's just going to do what Sony does and we just go along with it. They just for some reason just don't feel as vocal or get as up in arms about things. Like there's definitely stuff that's not worth getting up in arms and angry about, but like for example, when Xbox was gonna, skyrocket the price of gold, you remember how quick they turned that around after everybody blasted them?
Oh yeah,
Less than 24 hours, they reversed that decision. Because the Xbox community was like, no. This is not gonna cut it, okay? And so they fixed it. And so it just feels like if PlayStation community was as vocal, maybe they'd get some more stuff that they want. Or maybe Sony is just completely different culture entirely and it doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm not as well versed in their culture and policies, but it seems like they're a lot less vocal. And now we've piled on them, so to give them some praise to balance things out a little bit, I wanted to say that I do like that they've added trophies to some PS1 and older games. Like Siphon Filter, Ben Studios has, added a platinum and complete trophy support for Siphon Filter, Ape Escape, some of these other games. They're things I want OG Xbox games to get, and I've been quite vocal about it. I play them anyway because I love them. I love my OG games, but if they added achievements, it would bring a whole new level of replayability and it would bring some people in that hadn't tried them before. And I think personally, Xbox would. It's something they'll consider. And I think if everybody's vocal enough, there's a good chance they do it. Just keep letting them know that you want it. And my hunch is that if they were to do it, they would want to do it in a way to where it makes sense in the game. It's not just a you get 1,000 gamer story, you beat the game, maybe whatever. Like they would want to do it where, like, say Knights of the Old Republic or Jade Empire. You've got your light side, you got your dark side. You get achievements for progression in those. You got your side quest. You're like, okay, I'm going to be a Jedi Sentinel or a Guardian, or I'm going to I've gone to this planet and found the star map here, or I've completed this quest line, or I've specialized in this class, or I've made my lightsaber, all kinds of different things that they could add achievements for. Fit the story and the gameplay, etc. If they were to do it, I think they'd be waiting till they could do it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like PlayStation adding trophies to, PlayStation 1 games, and then, they'll probably do the same for PlayStation 2 games. But yeah, that's a good point. I think people would like to be able to play, like you were saying, KOTOR. Like, I think Knights of the Old Republic, and we'll be talking about Knights of the Old Republic in a bit. That's an excellent game. Is it a bit dated? Yeah, but it's an all-time classic. It's up there with the original Final Fantasy VII, in my opinion. Like, it's an RPG people need to play. But if they put achievements on that, maybe have different achievements for different endings. Maybe pick the good or bad ending. You know, maybe an achievement for, like, different colored lightsabers and stuff. An achievement for picking up each side character, like Ballista and stuff. Like that would work out really well. I think Microsoft, they're probably working on it, because we haven't heard anything from the BC team for months. Like, not really. Like, ever since we got the November drop of, FPS boost and 70 plus, new games added, like, no one from the BC team's basically said anything. And I don't think they're sitting, in the chairs doing nothing. They're probably working on stuff. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I think achievements would be pretty cool, especially for, like the original Splinter Cell games. Like, those would work so well. Um, you know, Shizno really just said he has a hard time playing first gen 3D game. The original Xbox, I think, that was the second generation of basically 3D games, and that was a very weird generation, because there's games from that gen that looked really good at the time, but there were also games coming out that didn't. Splinter Cell and Halo at the time looked amazing, but there was a game that you basically played as a speedboat that was bad. It was terrible. But yeah, it was a weird era. It's like Knights of the Old Republic still looks good to me. Maybe it's just an age thing, because I've just played it so many times. But yeah, I think Microsoft will work on some achievements. Plus, it'll get more people to just buy the games. Um, so anyway, speaking of Knights of the Old Republic, we may as well move on to that topic. So basically, Microsoft was basically approached in 2014 to work on Marvel titles, or if they would want to work on Marvel titles. Now, there's something I realized about this before the show started, but Logan, I know you wanted to talk about this, so what do you say on the whole, you know, we'll get into Knights of the Republic next, but I'll talk about the Marvel games.
Um, the Marvel thing doesn't bother me as much because when that was happening, Xbox was, in full damage control, have to turn this ship around. Like, actually, it was a sinking ship at that point. Like, Xbox One and the console itself and the ecosystem was very much in flux to whether it was going to continue to exist or not. You know how bad 2013 launch and everything. So I understand Phil wanting to focus on first party, trying to get, their house in order and get things going. And I mean, in hindsight, it sucks because, Sony got Spider Man, and now they have Wolverine. And Spider Man obviously just sold like crazy and was widely hailed. Insomniac joined PlayStation. It was a huge home run for them. And they were prepared for it at that moment and they made it work and it turned out spades for them. Now, it would have been nice if Xbox could have done it, but I understand why they didn't do it then. Going forward, I'd like it if they could. But the one that bothers me personally is the Knights of the Old Republic one. That one really, 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 really bothers me. If all that, alleged stuff is true about them being approached and them saying no. Me, I, it's my favorite game of all time, just point blank. Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Republic 2 Sith Lords. Like, it personally mean a lot to me. I, grew up with them. I've played them so many times. I'm a huge Star Wars guy in general, so it's always I always associated Xbox and Star Wars, and the fact that you look at the pantheon of great games in Xbox's history. Not the Old Republic is one of those S tier in the Xbox ecosystem. It's like one of their best games they've ever had on their platform. So to me, the fact that if you were approached first and it wasn't that you just missed out on it and you turned it down, you'd better have a really, really good reason. Because it feels like a slap in the face to the legacy of the platform, fans who've been there since the beginning, who've associated it with this. It's an all-time game. So it feels like a massive dropping the ball moment. Like, I'll praise Phil and leadership all day long. They've been doing great. They've been doing awesome. But this is just not a good look in my opinion. Unless there were some things that obviously they knew that we don't. Maybe the game looked horrible. Maybe the cost of it was prohibitive to where it would have interfered with some other stuff. Maybe they have some other Star Wars projects in the works. There's the rumored Mandalorian game by ZeniMax Online, or maybe someone else in the Bethesda or Xbox ecosystem has a Star Wars game that they're working on. So maybe if they had to choose, they obviously went with those. But I don't know. Just as a longtime fan and as someone who it's his favorite game ever, personally, that one just hit me like a truck. That it really bothered me. At the end, it's not the end of the world, but it just I don't know. Just something felt wrong about that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are just rumors, but like, I'll give my thought on it. That I'll get the Marvel thing out the way because I think that's a fairly easy one to go over. At the time when they were approached about Marvel games, Microsoft and Xbox, they only had like four studios. They had Turn 10, 343 Industries, the Coalition, and Rare, and also Lionhead. Right? They basically just had those studios. So at the time, they basically didn't have the teams for it, right? So for them to be asked, do you want to work on Marvel games? At the time, I completely understand them not going for it if it's true. Like, that makes sense. Like, who was going to make it? Like, 343 were working on Halo. The Coalition was working on Shanghai Nights, or whatever it was called, and then they start working on Gears. But, like, all their studios were working on other projects, so that made sense. But when it comes to the whole Star Wars thing, that's a weird one because, Aspire, they make ports of games. They don't make remasters. They make straight up ports of old games. They've worked on things like Knights of the Old Republic was ported to PlayStation and then the Switch, and other Star Wars games like Jedi Outcast and Star Wars Episode One Pod Racer from the Nintendo 64 is on Xbox now. So they just do ports, and then when they announce this and it's like a remake, like I'm a very I'm very particular over remakes because, like, if you watch movies, you know that remakes can be bad. Like, have you seen Total Recall from 2012? Not exactly the best remake. So, like, I don't know if they're going to be, like, really faithful to the material. There's been rumors that they changed some stuff around. So until we see it, we don't know. But, like, I see this as a situation where, like, the thing is about these deals is that the developer creates the game and they either get approached or approach, the publisher. And to me, it kind of just seems like one of those moves Sony would do just to be sly. Like, they've done it in the past with stuff. They've joked about, getting the Call of Duty, marketing rights. They did the jokes back in 2013 with the whole handing the game over, how you share games. to me, that just seems like, oh, well, they had X amount of money to get a deal for a game that could be big, and then they went for Star Wars. You know, should Microsoft have went for it? Maybe they could have outbid them, I guess. But like until we see it, we don't know the situation, and it's timed. It's a timed exclusive, so I think it's going to be like a year, I guess. But yeah, I mean the thing is, KOTOR. I love that game. That game came out in what 2005, 2004, one of the two.
2003.
Really? Wow. Uh, wow, I was young when I was playing that. 2003. That seems way too long ago. Anyway, I loved the game at the time. If it wasn't for KOTOR, I wouldn't have Mass Effect. I love BioWare. Like KOTOR is the reason I love BioWare. Um, so yeah, I understand why people and why you'd be bothered by this. KOTOR was amazing. Like even all these years later, I don't want to talk about the twists in that game because they are mind blowing. And some of the twists in those games are better than the stuff that you see in like big budget movies. You don't see the twists coming, and yeah, it's strange. It's very strange. But again, it's going to be a while till we see it. I think because they start talking about them working on, or should I say, Aspire working on a new project like maybe a year ago. So if they just start development on that, and KOTOR was a huge game, had a lot of planets, had thousands of lines of dialogue. It had, I think it takes like 80 hours to finish and do everything. So it's a big game, and as you were saying before, there's been rumors for about the past year and a half now of Microsoft or a Microsoft studio working on a Mandalorian game. This rumor came out from two different sources at two different times. Now, whenever that happens, it leads me to believe that it could be true, because if two kind of reputable sources at two different times talk about two different things, but they kind of related, they normally, legit. And it just seems a kind of out there thing, Mandalorian was huge in 2020 when that first came out. Like that was massive. And I think Bethesda working on a Mandalorian MMO. That's possible because they have been hiring for a new MMO for the past 2 years. So maybe like who knows? Like there's a ton of Star Wars games in development. There's Jedi Fallen Order 2, which is Jedi Survivor. We're gonna see tomorrow. I'm 99% sure that we're gonna see Jedi Fallen Order 2 tomorrow, Jedi Survivor, during Star Wars Celebration. EA is working on 3 Star Wars games. We haven't seen any, and I'm talking about outside of Jedi Fallen Order. Ubisoft's working on an open world action game that's a Star Wars title. There's a few other small developers working on Star Wars games. Now, the cool thing is that as a Star Wars fan, we're actually getting Star Wars games, or at least going to. Yeah, we're going to get them on a regular basis. Because during the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, we got Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. We got Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Squadrons. We got 4 games. I'm not including the Lego ones because that's just a different kettle of fish. But, like, we got 4 games throughout an entire generation. And if you look at the Xbox 360 generation, we got 4 if you include the Kinect game and not including the Lego games. But it's weird. And the thing is, Halo, no, not Halo fans, but Star Wars fans, we have a lot to look forward to when it comes to video games. I just hope some developers do something with Star Trek, right? I'm a Star Wars fan and a Star Trek fan. I'm just saying, Star Wars fans looking forward to all these games, and I'm like, I've got one game to look forward to from Star Trek. One. Do something, developers. Anyway, we'll move on. So anyway, while we were on the 2-week hiatus, Gotham Knights randomly got 13 minutes of gameplay. Now, Logan, have you watched this yet?
I have not.
Okay, so basically, this is not set in the Arkhamverse. It's basically an open world DC game like we used to, but it's an action RPG, and it's also set in a living city. So there's no weird story or plot element for the developer not having to populate the city with civilians or traffic. There's literally cars and motorcycles driving around, people minding their own business, and dynamic crimes. The dynamic crimes thing has been a rumor for ages, but it looks like it's real now. Anyway, they put out 13 minutes of gameplay. It looks so good. It looks like what a lot of people have been wanting from an open world DC game. Because again, Spider-Man games for decades has been populated. Like the city's been populated, and you've been able to save people. Like Spider-Man 2 on the Xbox and PlayStation 2, it had dynamic crimes throughout the city, and it had traffic and people walking around, but we haven't had that before, and it looked really good. But the interesting thing about this is that they actually cancelled the last gen versions, so no more Xbox One or PlayStation 4 versions, and I'm actually surprised by that because in a time where the worldwide chip shortage is just continuing on, and I'm beginning to see some developers embrace last generation more because the latest Gollum game, Lord of the Rings Gollum, that was announced for next gen only in PC a year and a half ago, and they just announced today it's coming out in September, and it's also coming to PlayStation One. I should say PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. Like that was out of nowhere, but Gotham Knights they got rid of the last gen versions. Having a populated city was maybe an issue on the CPU, but what's your thought on them whole like ditching the last gen versions of the game?
Well, I think it's smart now that we're several years into the generation to primarily focus going forward on this gen. And it allows them to devote full resources and manpower to the current gen systems. And I'm just excited that we're gonna get a new Batman game. It's been a hot minute since we've had a Batman game, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about DC fans and like DC video game fans, like we got one game last generation, like during the Xbox 360 generation, we got three open world Batman games. I should say three, Arkham games, and last gen we got one. So like, and it looks like Warner Brothers games they getting more. How should I say? They coming out with more games over the next year. The League of Super Pets game comes out next month. Gotham Knights comes out later this year, and Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League comes out next year. Wonder Woman is rumored to come out late next year, early 2024. I can't wait for that because that game's going to be using the Nemesis system from the Lord of the Rings games. But yeah, Gotham Knights looks fantastic, and you know, Hacky Sack just said in chat like he doesn't get why people say it's rough. So ever since they showed gameplay, people have been complaining about the visuals. Now, if you think about social media, every time there's a game shown, people say the visuals are bad. Like, have you noticed this? Like, people just complain about everything. And I think we live in an age where people just look at these super overly animated games. Like, look at Horizon, right? That is a gorgeous looking game on the PlayStation 4 and 5, right? Gorgeous looking game. I haven't played it, but I've seen a lot of clips. But that game looks overly animated. The camera zooms in, she's getting a hand, she's wiping camouflage on her face, she's pulling the bow, and it's like, why are they animating this like too much? Like, gamers don't really care. Like when Red Dead Redemption came out, I remember people complaining about the animations taking too long. It's because the animations are realistic, and I think gamers have gone from looking at these super overly animated games to, clearly like the developers were putting more, emphasis on the environment and the action. Like I don't really care about a character picking certain things up. Hell, even in Horizon Forbidden West, like they added a feature where you can automatically pick up items rather than going around and picking them up with your hand. Like that's a quality of life feature, but like we don't need these super overly animated games. Like, do you really care, Logan, about like having super small animations for stuff?
I mean, on one hand, it adds more immersion, and it's like, wow, this is so realistic. Like, I can see, just the intricacies of, putting the eyeshadow on, or, you know, doing this, or picking up this item and putting it in a pocket, or, but, at the end of the day, if it's just minute things, it's not a huge deal to me, because, I grew up in the era where I thought it was cool if you just saw them grab it and then ends up in your inventory. Like now I don't know, it doesn't bother me either way, but I think there's way too much microscoping of games, like visually and just thematically, everything. It's just like people are always just trying to find something to tear apart about something, and then especially fans of certain games to where they always compare it to this title or that one. And like, if something doesn't have same water effect as that one, or a rat that happens to run across the screen doesn't look the same or do the same animation as it does in this game, then it's inferior. And it's just at the end of the day, it's like, are you playing the game because you actually like the game, or are you playing it because you want to be an instigator? And it's just weird.
Yeah, Hacky Sack just said in chat the animations in Red Dead were incredible. They are. They are. Even in the first one. But here's the thing, and this occurred to me during, I think it was like the 100 hours it took us to finish Red Dead Redemption 2. That, there's an animation where when you go fishing, Arthur gets the fishing pole out of his, like pocket, and then he unfolds it, and then he, like, tightens the grip, and then he throws it, like a fishing rod. And then when you're done fishing, he reels the wire back, and then he unscrews it, and then folds it, and then puts it in his pocket. And I'm like, did they really need to do that? Like, at the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like, that felt next gen because of just the visuals and, like, everything about it. And you're right, it's immersive. It's immersive as hell when, like, game characters do small things like that. But when I saw that same animation for the 40th time, like, I was like, I'm going to throw my console out the window. Like I got so annoyed by it because I was fishing all the time in that game, and it's like it was the same with everything. Skinning an animal in that game took forever. And it was the same thing every time. And I think when it comes to, like, Gotham Knights, people are just looking at that thinking, why isn't that animated like Red Dead Redemption or Horizon or Assassin's Creed Valhalla? It's like, it's just a different game. Is that cool stuff? Is that small stuff cool? Yeah, it's really cool. But the thing is, if people follow me on Twitter and, like, on YouTube, like, I don't really nitpick. I don't see the point. Like, I think Gotham Knights looks awesome. It's ditched the last gen version. If they could not fundamentally get that looking good and performing well on last gen consoles, it makes sense for them ditching it. The gameplay looks good. I think it looks good. They just said in chat, Red Dead Redemption 2 felt clunky when you got attacked and you had to fight back. Yeah, because your character in that game has momentum like a real life person, and it felt slow compared to other games because in other games we don't get that attention, to detail. So it's like, do you want realism and slowness, or do you want, fast and, I should say, unrealistic? And I think, gamers are just on different sides of the fence. But I will say, Red Dead Redemption 2's animations, they look amazing. Like, I remember opening a drawer in that game, and Arthur puts his hand in, picks up a matchbox, looks at it, moves the matchbox around in his hand, and then puts it in his pocket. Like, I was thinking, they can do that in games? What the hell? Like, that blew my mind. And, even now on next-gen games, not a lot of gamers, not a lot of developers do that. They really don't. But, yeah, anyway, Gotham Knights comes out October. I suspect that in the next week or two, they're going to delay it. Because Call of Duty releases 3 days after. Yeah. I think with that, we'll just move right into the next topic.
That's a death sentence for a game.
yeah. I mean, Gotham Knights comes out on the 25th of October, and I saw that date without really thinking about anything else, and I was thinking, excellent release date. I'm buying it day one. I love the idea of it. I've kept up with this game. The rumors I've heard about the game since before it was even shown off line up with other stuff I've seen. It's going to be a good title. But today, when they announced that Modern Warfare 2, the sequel to the hugely successful 2019 Modern Warfare, it comes out 3 days later, and I just, like, the first thing I thought was, like, that game's getting delayed. Like, I'm not one of these people that thinks a game's getting delayed because it releases around something else, because they're completely different fan bases. But the problem is that open world DC games, everyone likes, Like, literally everyone likes it. It's not just DC fans. Like, there are people that don't like superhero games that will pick up Arkham whatever in the future, or the Suicide Squad game and Gotham Knights, because it's a fun open world DC game. And they've had good times in the past with them, and they'll buy more of them. But those same people will also buy Call of Duty, and I can't see those people buying both. So when that was announced today, I'm thinking, okay, it's getting delayed. So if people want to clip this, they can, because it might happen. I think in the next month, Gotham Knights is getting delayed to early 2023. Now, I don't want that to happen, because I can't wait for that game. a lot of games are being delayed this year, which we're going to talk about soon. But Gotham Knights, like, do you think Gotham Knights is getting moved, especially after the whole Modern Warfare thing?
Yeah, I would say with Modern Warfare 2, which is gonna be the biggest title in this part of the year, coming out 3 days later, and especially for the casual audience, that's gonna be massive. I think it would be wise for them to move it. Yeah.
You know, Shizno once again has a good point. Maybe Gotham Knights will get pushed up a couple of weeks. That has happened in the past. You are right. And the thing is, Gotham Knights was originally meant to come out in 2020. You know, the original, pandemic or the pandemic kicking off and everyone working from home, that really hurt development across the board. Like Hogwarts Legacy, for instance, has been delayed about 5 times, a couple of times internally as well. So when it comes to Gotham Knights, you're right. Like, as far as I know, Gotham Knights is fairly done. They're just in the polishing phase. So if they come out early October, late September, like, I can see that working out really well for them. It's enough time in between Call of Duty. Yeah, I'm hoping. Like, I do not want them to delay it into next year. I really don't. Again, from what I've heard, Gotham Knights is pretty much done. But when it comes to release windows, I know for a fact that Warner Brothers games and the higher ups over there are terrified when to release games, right? Because in the past they've released games around other popular titles such as Call of Duty, and it's kind of hurt the sales. So yeah, moving it up every week. I can't see them at this point moving it into 2023. Now that I think about it, just to escape Call of Duty, because then again, early next year there's some big titles coming out, and that's when Suicide Squad's meant to come out by their next quarter. So yeah, yeah, that's hope. I'm hoping for positive stuff here. And while we're talking about Call of Duty, when it was announced today that Modern Warfare 2 is coming out in October 28th, you mentioned that if the AB deal goes through, we could see that on Game Pass. Care to elaborate? Because I kind of agree.
Well, hypothetically, if the deal gets finalized by October, I was saying, potentially it would certainly help your year if you could put that in Game Pass day one, day and date, and be your Starfield replacement. But I've talked with some folks since then who've said that it seems like Sony still has firm grip on the marketing for it, and like they have the beta priority, and it's coming first to PlayStation and such. So my guess is they would probably have some fangs in their paperwork that would prevent it from launching into Game Pass. But if that isn't the case and they did get the AB deal done in time, then I think that would be a no-brainer, and it would certainly really, really help Game Pass this year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I haven't really checked Twitter today, so I don't really know if Sony still have the marketing, because in a recent like internal thing from Sony where they were talking about what games they have marketing deals for, they mentioned Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, and they mentioned a few other games, but Call of Duty wasn't listed for a partner title. Even Hogwarts Legacy was listed, as a partner title because they've got the marketing deal. There was no Call of Duty there. I don't know if the official PlayStation Twitter account have posted anything about Call of Duty, but those Call of Duty deals for marketing tend to last a couple of years. It's never just 1 year at a time. So, like, maybe it's lapsed. Maybe this year is just free reign. Like, if Microsoft had the marketing rights, they would have been talking about it. So the fact that no one's mentioned anything is kind of suspicious, you know. And if it does happen, this is going to be the last year they have marketing deal for, as far as I'm aware of. But yeah, that's going to be weird. And the thing is, if that does launch in Game Pass, that is going to be huge. That'll be one of the biggest, Game Pass releases to date. Because again, people might complain about Call of Duty's yearly releases, but at the end of the day, it's one of the best-selling games, if not the best-selling game of the year every year in the US and pretty much the UK as well. Well, that was FIFA, but yeah, it looks very possible that we could see that. And the thing is, I think Microsoft will push for that, even if the deal's not properly final by then. Because again, there's a lot of money in people subscribing to Game Pass because they play all the games and they invest into DLC and stuff. And it's like, um, yeah, it could happen. You never know. But while we're talking about Game Pass, we may as well go into the big topic. So a few days ago, someone that I'm not entirely familiar with just posted out on Twitter saying there's no AAA games coming to Game Pass anytime soon. I'm going to unsubscribe. Right? It's not the biggest or worst thing anyone's ever said on Earth. Right? It's not really that bad. But it's the fact that this person announced it to the world, and the fact that this person had a huge following, it made the news. And it caused tidal waves. Like, this person said he didn't actually post it to get a reaction. He posted it then, just noticed the reaction the next day. Whether that's true or not, not up for debate. But like, the fact that he posted it, that's a very polarizing thing to get posted, because Game Pass is an excellent service. I recommend it to everyone. There's a lot of content in there. We're getting new games all the time. But whenever I see someone post something like that, I'm thinking, why? Why are you posting that? Like, I unsubscribed from Netflix last year. I never talked about it. I never made a post to the world, announced it to the world. I just unsubscribed from Netflix, And then when they put Red Notice in, Netflix in December, I got another month, watched a few other things, and then unsubscribed again. But like, the fact they announced it to the world, and then I saw a few other people start announcing to the world that they're not subscribing to Game Pass anymore because the lack of AAA releases in the service. Now that has to be, I'm putting it out there, that has to be one of the dumbest statements I've ever seen. Because like, are the people that only play, and I mean literally only play, new AAA releases when they're out? I don't find that believable, because there's awesome indie games releasing all the time. There's games getting updated with content all the time. Sniper Elite 5 is a huge game. It comes to Game Pass tomorrow, right? It has the most features, the biggest maps, the most maps. It's going to have a proper cinematic campaign. It has the best movement and shooting. It has the most accessibility and most difficulty options of the entire series to date. Sniper Elite is going to be a massive game. Or should I say Sniper Elite 5. And it's like, no AAA releases. We can only have new AAA releases in Game Pass when developers are releasing games. Because around this time of year, there's no big games coming out. So Microsoft can't get these third-party games in the service if they don't exist. You know what I mean? Do I have a point, Logan?
Yeah, the whole thing is just I don't know. You can put a tinfoil hat on about it. It's very odd, especially like, basically you go through it. There articles get written, all this huge hubbub online about it, and all it was essentially were two folks just tweeted out that they weren't gonna be subscribing anymore. It's not this mass diaspora, like this huge exodus where thousands upon thousands of people are, throwing their Xbox into the sea and they're just done with the company or this or this. But if you read some of these pieces, you would totally believe that's what was happening. It was just a couple people stating their opinion, which I know Twitter's for. You're free. You can do whatever you want. If you want to unsubscribe, go ahead. If you want to subscribe, kudos. I mean, you can do your opinion, whatever. It's just that it feels weird when just it's a very calculated thing to announce that I am going to do something, because you have to have a reason for it. Most people don't just fire from the hip when it comes from something like that. And the fact that if you have a large following like that, and especially if you're verified, that doubly gives you even more responsibility with your actions, because it would be different if, John Doe, who had 200 followers, tweeted something like that. People would be like, yeah, okay, cool, John, whatever. But if you're a credentialed journalist for the Washington Post or for other tech publications, whatever, and you're doing that, then it carries a lot more weight and brings a lot more attention to it. Whether it's your intention or not, don't debate or take a side on that one way or another, whatever your intention is, it gets received and interpreted a lot differently. And it just Kotaku, you know who they are. You know what they're about. I'm not surprised at all they ran with that and made it into a thing it wasn't. Then Xbox curb stomped them because they were tired of being the fly flying around, so they swatted it. It was getting on their nerves. They pissed them off. Xbox is best when they're pissed off and motivated, and they are now, definitely. The bear has been poked, and they are ready to roll, which is good. That's what they need. They needed a little fire lit under them. So the whole thing is ridiculous, and the fact that they even doubled down with another article right after that about Ed Free's comments from whenever about how he had some concern about the industry because he had just a different view on some things, but they were running that right after that just to capitalize on the Xbox hate train and stuff. It just whole thing's gross and a joke, and just it shows the whole gamer mentality online that has gotten out of hand.
Seeing Kotaku post something crap isn't unusual. It happens on a daily basis. People are used to that. So seeing the Game Pass Twitter account completely ratio Kotaku on Twitter was a beautiful thing. I might frame that someday. Because I do not like Kotaku. Most people don't like Kotaku. The only people that like Kotaku are the people being paid there. And even then, they probably hate the place. That place has been marred in controversy for years. So, like, it's a pretty crappy place. Um, but yeah, someone with a check mark voicing their opinion like that on Twitter was going to cause a reaction. And ever since you have fanboys announce that they're going to, quit the service and sell the console, it's like, you didn't have the console to begin with, and you don't have the service. Like, like attention seekers, And the thing is, it's okay for people to unsubscribe from Game Pass. If a game, I should say, if there's no release, for weeks or months, not going to be in your interest, or if you've played everything in Game Pass, unsubscribe. Like, nobody's stopping you, but the fact that this person had to announce it to the world, like, did he do it with bad interest or whatever? Who knows? But it's like, that was obviously gonna, cause something. Because, like I have almost 20,000 followers on Twitter. I don't voice all of my gaming opinions on there. Do you know why? Because I don't like that kind of reaction, right? I don't like getting under, the radars, what the right. Anyway, I don't like talking about, like, I think I was talking about games being overly animated. I have not said that on Twitter. I've never talked about how I think map packs were better when we were paying for them. I've not said that on Twitter because I know the reaction, right? And it makes you wonder, did this person really know? Did he really think about it? But, I'm not going to say the dude's a bad person. Like, I've seen him post other stuff in the past. Seemed pretty cool. But, like, all these other people start running with it. Kotaku ran with it, ran the multiple articles. You on about the Ed Freeze thing. Having someone from Xbox's past talk about Game Pass negatively shines a lot of light on the situation, makes people suspicious. And to this day, you still have podcasts every week bashing Game Pass and talking about it ruining the industry. Yet these same people are now talking about PlayStation Plus Essential, Megaforce, that it's going to be awesome. It's like, a service is only okay if it's available on your platform. And we've had multiple developers every single week, pretty much, on Twitter, voice their opinions saying, look, they've made a huge success because of a game and Game Pass. We've seen hard numbers of gamers spending more money because games are in Game Pass. Like me, I buy games that don't launch in the service. So I pay for my Game Pass subscription. I play the games that are in the service, and then I buy the games that don't. Like, I bought Guardians of the Galaxy at launch. I bought Dying Light. Dying Light 2. I bought Elden Ring, Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Those games didn't launch in Game Pass. I bought it with the money, that I've been saving. So it's just silly to think that this is a thing, And, again, nobody cares if anyone subscribes or unsubscribes. Just the voicing it on Twitter is a very weird thing. It's like when the whole Netflix thing came out about a month ago where, they lost 100,000 subscribers, right? And then people were just randomly announcing it on Twitter, like, I'm unsubscribing, Like, why are you announcing it? Nobody cares, and they shouldn't care. Everyone was announcing it like they're in the movie Spartacus, It made no sense. It was silly. And, it's strange because, again, we're going to get more AAA games in. We're getting Scorn this year. We're getting Warhammer 40k Dark Tide. We're getting, I think, well, Redfall's moved to next year. Starfield, yeah. And here's the thing: we'll rope in the whole Starfield thing. Starfield and Redfall got delayed into next year. Now, I was about 80% convinced that Redfall was going to get delayed, right? But I was about 100% convinced that Starfield wasn't going to get delayed because the way they've been talking about it, and let's face it, at every opportunity, people over at Microsoft have been saying, look, 11/11/22, 11/11/2022. Like, everyone was convinced that the game was coming out this year, and then they announced that. And it's like, at the end of the day, my opinion on it is that I'm okay with delays. I really am. I've seen games released too early and suffered, and I've seen games get delayed and be better products. And I think, Logan, you've probably heard what I'm about to say before. Every time someone says now, and people listening right now, they can pay attention to this, and you'll see it online. Every time someone says a delay is okay because we get a better game, you get at least one person replying saying, "But Cyberpunk." That's not fair to do that to every game and every developer just to mention Cyberpunk. Because Cyberpunk, from what I've been told, is a good game. It just launched a buggy mess on hardware that clearly wasn't meant to run it on. But all in all, Cyberpunk is apparently a good game. And I just think it's stupid that everyone's saying, but Cyberpunk. But Cyberpunk. Like, does that make any sense, Logan?
Yeah, I understand why it's on everybody's minds because it's still relatively recent, but Cyberpunk is a very different entity entirely. CD Red was dealing through massive crunch. They had a whole bunch of organizational issues. They were having to jump from, you know, Xbox One generation to next gen, but also having to be held back by past gen. And then, the PlayStation SKU was different for different things. And then, like smart delivery versus, you know, whatever PlayStation has. And then a whole bunch of things. It wasn't optimized right. There was a buggy mess. It didn't turn out the way people expected. But they have made it a good game now. It took a while, but it is a good game now. And more content is coming, and I'm excited for that. But to compare every game to that is not fair. I mean, no two games are the same situation or same product. I mean, it's just different environments, different factors going in. I don't think it's fair at all to compare it to that. If anything, I think what probably happened with Starfield, at least in my guess, is that when Phil and them went down to Bethesda to visit, they saw them, and Todd gave them the runaround about where Starfield's at, this is what we're doing, and this, and then they came to a decision then to delay it. That's my hunch. That's not source. That's not you know out there. It's just my personal guess from looking at it that they're hyping it up all this time, having all the documentaries, the little videos and this and marketing the heck out of it. And then all of a sudden they post this picture that we're with Bethesda, we're excited for the future, and then lo and behold, like the next day or a few days later, they delay it in Redfall. Redfall, I expected a delay as well. That one just it felt like it was a little further behind than where it needed to be. But Starfield shocked me. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. It does suck when you get your big, massive tentpole new IP that everybody's hyped for. It's punted to the next year. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. It raises questions, especially with some of the other management things that have been going on. But if it was in a vacuum, just Starfield and Redfall, I doubt people would really be making that big of a deal. It's been kind of a rough few months for Xbox lately in news. So just adding that on top of it, I think kind of just exacerbated the situation. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a lot better for it. And, instead of the bug Thesda memes and all that, like, it should be really, really polished and great and ready to go next year. And I can't wait.
Yeah, and this is basically going to be the biggest Bethesda RPG today. It's like single player wise, Redfall. Like we obviously going to see gameplay for both of these games in the June 12th event, but like I don't really have any concerns about Starfield. People have mentioned the engine thing, and there have been rumors that they're using the same engine. Uh, so basically, in the past 24 hours, there's been some threads on Reset Era, the most reliable place on Earth, um, that they're using the same old engine and fly and feel sluggish. But this was based on an uncorroborated, source, so to speak, right? But yet this was the same website where Forsaken was rumored to get delayed, and they deleted the post almost immediately. So it's like it's strange because like one game gets treated one way, And the thing is, I'm not happy about the Starfield delay. I'm not. I'm a guy that talks about sci-fi 24/7. I love Mass Effect, and if anyone follows me on Twitter, you know my love for Mass Effect. I talk about that game every day, and we don't get single player space raring sci-fi RPGs often. Like we got Mass Effect Andromeda, and then before that we got what the Mass Effect trilogy. Like there hasn't been anything since. So like I've been looking forward to Starfield since it was rumored in 2015. I've had my eyes on it for a long time. I cover Starfield on the channel. And I will do until after it's released. But it's like, and there's things I know about Starfield that are definitely going to be in Starfield that haven't been public yet, which I'll be talking about soon. But it's like Starfield's going to be a good game. I wouldn't worry about it. Redfall, again, we haven't seen a peep on. We haven't seen any in-engine footage. It's a weird game. Am I concerned about that? No, no. We're gonna see it in June, And if it looks bad, let's say we see Starfield and it's running at 25 frames per second, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look like it's fun. Then people have every right to be concerned. But until then, it's just a delay, right? You know, and there are games coming this year that Microsoft haven't announced yet, or should I say, properly talked about. Like it's rumored that we're going to see Forza Motorsport this year. There are some smaller games in development over at Xbox Game Studios. You have to remember they have like 25 plus studios at the minute, most of which consist of multiple teams. We're going to see In Exile's next game, I believe. I'll be talking about the summer event soon, but it's like I don't think people should be concerned. You know, Even if they have no first party games this year, which I do think they will have first party games, we have Stalker 2 still apparently coming this year. Atomic Heart still coming this year at Xbox, apparently. Although the whole Russian Ukraine thing I'm not going to get into, but like it looks like we're still getting that. Scorn, you know, we have a Plague Tale Requiem. All those games look super awesome. Scorn especially. Scorn looks freaky. I don't know how people are going to stomach that game, and I can't wait to play it. But like, the game looks good. I don't think people should be worried. And if you remember in the past when we've had multiple delays for games, and then it gets to the E3 showcase, and people are impressed with what they see, everyone's like, okay, yeah, I'm happy now. Like it happens every single year. There's the lead up to the Xbox Summer Showcase. People are concerned, and then people shut up afterwards. Like, Logan, you've been on Twitter long enough now to notice this, right?
Yeah, it's the never-ending cycle. It's just like something gets delayed, there's panic in the fan base. People start looking at leadership. Does there need to be change? Does there need to be this or that? It's like, oh, look at this company. This is what they're doing. How can they do this while we can't, get off our hands and actually get anything accomplished? And then, an event happens and everybody's like, oh, okay. So they felt comfortable enough to, push things back and give it the time it needs, and they have this other stuff in the pipeline that we weren't privy to. I mean, I fully expect that. I expect the show to be good, not an all timer, but a good one. And I think it will probably focus on the next 12 months. Because that's been a big thing that people have been voicing in the community is that they want to see what's actually coming soon. Like, we like seeing down the pipeline, like teasers, it's like get us something to actually be excited that's coming soon that I can tangibly enjoy very quickly. And I think this is going to be the show for them.
Yeah, and again, that's just right around the corner. And the thing is, if it's a bad show and what they show isn't impressive, I'll be vocal about it, but I have no reason to doubt what they're gonna show. Like there's stuff being rumored for ages, and the thing is, I don't want anything to leak. And whenever I find out about stuff, I don't leak it because I think there's still this enjoyment to be had from these game shows with these big reveals. Because remember, E3s we used to be fun as hell when social media wasn't filled with all these leaks. You know, remember the Xbox One X that leaked beforehand, the image of it leaked beforehand, the price leaked, everything, the games that holiday leaks, like everything is leaked for years. Last summer, I'd say it was okay, but like normally everything leaks, and as long as everything doesn't leak, I think people are going to be happy. Starfield delay again, it stings because I was looking forward to it, but at the end of the day, it will be a better product. And Redfall, well, it's a vampire co-op open world hunting game. And the thing is, we still have Contraband to see. The open world heist game by Avalanche, the creators of Just Cause and Rage 2. Like, that could be really cool. We don't know when it's meant to come out because that's been in development for 3 years, I believe. So, who knows if we're going to see that this year, but I don't think people should be worrying about games coming out this year. To finish off the show, I think we have to talk about Xbox sales, right? You know, Funnily enough, the Xbox Series X and S, I don't know if it was bundled into one, but basically the Xbox Series hardware outsold the PlayStation 5 in Japan. Now, is this going to continue for years and months and Xbox become the dominant platform in Japan? No. No, no. But the thing is, it's selling well. And the thing is, whenever I'm on social media, I see Japanese people, I should say Japanese gamers, posting pictures of themselves buying Xbox consoles. Like, you've noticed this as well, Logan, yeah?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot more Xbox Japan accounts and accounts going, oh, hey, I'm new to the ecosystem, or oh man, Game Pass is so cool. And then they like talking about their love of being able to trial these things, or xCloud on the go. And it seems like there is serious momentum. Like you said, I don't think this is going to be a thing where Xbox is suddenly the juggernaut in Japan. Nintendo's just down the street. So I don't think that's going to happen, but it is good that they're making progress finally. And that's what you want to see. You want to expand the brand and get more people in the ecosystem, more creators, more content, and build some net worth and just good vibes over there. And it seems like they're doing that right now. So the sales is very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, is it important because, like, it's going to create, like, a huge fan base over there? A little bit. Like, the thing is, the more Japanese gamers there are playing Xbox, the more Japanese games we'll see on Xbox. That was my big takeaway from it. Like, we will probably see more ports in the future if this, like, continues a little bit. Like, I don't think it's going to outsell PlayStation and Switch every month, but, like, it's good that they're selling well. And Microsoft always wanted their consoles to sell, well in Japan. The xCloud stuff is apparently kicking off over there because they're really into portable gaming in Japan. You always see people on the mobile phones playing video games, and with xCloud, makes it easy to play, AAA and just bigger releases outside of Candy Crush. But yeah, that's a good thing. I don't think this is Microsoft's start of, becoming the number one gaming thing in, Japan. It's a good move. And the thing is, Xbox Series hardware, it's awesome, right? My mind was blown when I first saw the Series S. Like, the fact that they got a next gen console to come out at £250 in the UK. And what was it in the US? Was it $250?
I believe it was $299, but don't quote me on that. But I think it was $299.
Either way, like, that was like a cheap way to get into the next gen, ecosystem, and like those little consoles, really powerful. Like, one of my mates has an Xbox Series S, and like he plays, I think it was Call of Duty at 120 frames per second. It's some shooter, but like the fact that it can do that is mind blowing. And the good consoles, and the fact that apparently Japanese gamers didn't buy Xbox 360s, or I should say the original Xbox, because of its size. Well, the Series S is tiny, it's like super small. So yeah, I mean, it's good that those are selling well. And again, we will see more Japanese games if this continues. I don't like the idea of people celebrating a console's success, or I should say any success, just because the other console is selling less because of a the chip shortage. Like, I don't think like Xbox and PlayStation are both dealing with a chip shortage. It's just that the Series S is easy to get out because it requires less transistors. Like, it's not really rocket science. Yeah, people are blaming the chip shortage. It's like, no, just one console requires less. It's easier to make. Supply and demand and availability. Well, there's more chips available for the Series S because it requires less. It's like there's even a Steam Deck shortage at the minute, and even a Switch to the extent. But things will get better. But yeah, good times for the Xbox Series consoles in Japan. And before we leave, I just want to talk about yeah, we were talking about Activision before and how the deal is progressing. Um, Logan, do you think the deal is going to be done by the end of summer?
End of summer, I don't think so. End of year, maybe. Um, there was a update by Brad Smith, who is like the legal guru at Microsoft and one of the very very higher ups, and he was speaking to reporters in Brussels. And Xbox basically has all their legal teams um, focused on this Activision Blizzard deal, trying to get this thing across the finish line. They've got, personnel in Washington to speak to senators, FTC. They've got, personnel to talk to the EU and different European regulators. Like, this is priority numero uno for them. They want to get this done, and they're doing whatever it takes to get it done. They've said the faster it goes, the better for them, but they're respecting the process. They basically Brad was quoted as saying that it's going pretty fast for a deal of this magnitude, and that a lawyer on the team said that they're at the end of the beginning, starting the beginning of the middle of the process. So this started in January. January 18 is when they announced the deal,
Yeah.
I believe. So it's been, 4-ish months. So, theoretically, if it took another 4 months, they could be done before the end of the year. But, the fact that it's multiple countries across continents, across different governments with different views on different things and different policies, it's complicated. It wouldn't shock me if it does go into next year. I definitely don't think this is going to be a deal where it goes all the way to, like, late summer of next year. Like, they left the room open for that. I don't see that. I think maybe earlier next year it gets done at the latest. But assuming it gets done, but they feel very confident, and they've basically kind of made it clear that we believe we have a good case and we'll get it through, and if not, then we'll see you in court. Is kind of what it sounds like from their camp. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, for a deal this size, it is progressing quickly. Plus, like, this is actually more than the Fox deal between Fox and Disney, and that took a while to go through. So it looks like, to me, it looks possible. It sounds like it's going to be possible. You do have people in the media that work at Bloomberg that are terrified of this happening, if you know what I mean.
Monopoly.
Yeah, it's like Monopoly every single
Oh my
time, but
gosh.
like working conditions all over they'll prove, and the fact that like we could probably see, they have like 20 studios making Call of Duty maps, like, and supporting Call of Duty. Like, the idea that Call of Duty's model could change and have more games come out by studios because I want my Singularity 2 by Raven Software.
Amen.
But yeah, I think things will go through. Will they happen by summer? No. I think Microsoft's trying to get this through as fast as possible so we can see Call of Duty like launching Game Pass for the first time, because that would be huge. But yeah, everything's looking good. Anyway, it's been a good show. Chat's been awesome. Logan, it's been awesome having you back on the show because, again, we've been away for 2 weeks. Again, everyone in chat, aside from the bots, has been excellent. Again, if you've enjoyed the show, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. We'll be back next week. Logan, do you have anything going on between now and then?
Not at the moment, but have some things planned for the future.
Awesome. And all of our social media stuff, our Twitters will be in the description down below. Follow us again if you're not following us already. We talk about gaming stuff pretty much all the time. Logan talks about sports as well. But yeah, it's always good times on Twitter. If you ignore and mute all the crap, there's a lot of stuff on there. Anyway, we'll be back next week. I have a video coming out this week. My last video performed very well. Thanks for everyone that's watched. Again, more stuff like that coming soon. And a lot of videos coming out hopefully between now and the Xbox event in June 12th. Anyway, hope everyone has a good day. We are out. Peace. Oh my.